Hello, you guys. So today I will be blind reacting to the Rick Glassman podcast episode with 𝗪𝐻. I don't know his name in real life, but 𝗪𝐻 from The Office. I was scrolling on TikTok and I came across a clip of Rick basically opening up about his autism diagnosis. And oddly enough, I was actually watching a TV show with him in it the other day. It's called Not Dead Yet. His character in the show is autistic. I didn't know that him in real life was autistic as well. And so when that 𝗪𝐻 and Rick Glassman clip came up and he was getting emotional talking about his diagnosis, I was like, oh my God, all of these things are finally connecting. And I was super, super interested and wanted to go give the full episode an actual watch. I guess in a weird way, today's episode's a little bit more casual. So, grab your drink, grab your food. If you're listening to me on a walk or something like that, take a quick breath. And I'm just happy to be here with you guys.
One of the main reasons I was so drawn to having you here, besides the fact that you're delightful and funny and brilliant and a great basketball player and rapper too, is that recently you came to kind of diagnose yourself with the help of experts that you are autistic and on the spectrum. And I find this absolutely fascinating. I saw the I Am Phenomenal film, which was great, but how were you led? It had to do with Bill Lawrence, is that right? The TV writer?
So that's the I Am Phenomenal video that I put on YouTube is kind of a story that was the inciting incident to me getting the proper diagnosis, which I had hypothesized for maybe a year or two before then, but also, I don't know, probably not. Does it matter? Why does it matter? I'm also feeling, I don't know if vulnerable is the right word, but I'm feeling insecure at the moment because it's something that I don't shy away from. I'm not secretive about this, but I don't love talking about it, and I will. There's just a lot of judgment. This isn't a victim sad story.
And I just want to say too, and I'll just address that because just straight up, I get how and why that would make you feel vulnerable, and you've probably read a lot of YouTube comments and people giving a lot of shit and being skeptical and even mean.
Oh, that's so sweet. That was such a good way to empathize. That makes me want to tear up because I imagine that meant a lot to Rick if I were to put myself in his shoes. Just hearing another person saying, I can understand why you feel that way, and following it up with specific examples of because of this, this, and this. Not only does this person empathize with me, but they actually see me and is taking this moment to understand why I feel insecure or feel apprehensive of talking about it.
Has been a thing for me because for my whole life, I struggled with mental health issues. I never really talked about it. It's been very vulnerable for me as well on this journey to come out and talk about anxiety, depression, suicidal ideation, loneliness, addiction, and what a role that played through my 20s and 30s, but still to this day. So I get it. It's very meaningful to people as well because they're like, oh, thank God you spoke about that. I'm also neurodivergent. You're so successful. You've got a stand-up career and an acting career. And I think these conversations are really important.
I did a TV show a few years ago called As We See It, and it was about 3 20-somethings on the autism spectrum living together to find independence and relationships and work and et cetera. After that show and befriending so many people, so many neurodivergent people, I became comfortable talking, more comfortable, being open and talking about it. But there still is this thing inside that was, when I first was diagnosed and I started talking about it, I had some people in my life that were like, yeah, I figured. And then some people were like, that's not what autism is. And I have said this before, but...
That's what's so difficult when you get diagnosed later and you're most likely a level 1 autistic or maybe even level 2 is that you get so many responses on all ends. Either you're not autistic enough, or we all knew this whole time and therefore you are always different. Even when you didn't even know it, everyone else knew it. And these moments are really shattering. You have to truly recalibrate so much with the diagnosis. At the end of the day, you just want someone to understand you, your story, your experiences, your spectrum. But for some reason, there's so much apprehension, both within the community and outside the community, to understand that autism.
That I found myself, and that's on me, I found myself, instead of just expressing myself or trying to better understand the way I communicate and how others could communicate more efficiently with me, I found myself in positions where I was like almost selling. No, you don't understand. You don't know some of the things that I don't show. You don't know some of the things when I'm alone. You don't understand all the special schools and special classes and isolation things when I was a kid. And it was like, what am I selling you on how long it took me to put on some fucking socks? And it just felt so dirty to where I stopped talking about it.
That part. When you almost feel like you have to convince someone that you actually do profoundly struggle and it's not normal. There's this idea that if you have to say it like that with so much self-awareness, then you're not actually struggling. Because if you're truly struggling, then you would just be so deep in the struggle that you wouldn't be able to even process that you're struggling. And people have to come in and help you because they're the ones who notice before you. So there's so many times where when there's autistic people that are like, I'm really struggling, I'm thinking about opting out and things like that, this is really hard. And then people are like, well, we all go through that. Like, everyone goes through a hard time. Like, you just have to find ways to keep going. And it's just like, no, you don't understand. I'm really, really having a hard time, more than an average person. People don't like hearing that because they think it's invalidating to themselves, or they feel like you're weak because you're struggling more than them. So you must not be trying hard enough. And it's so hard to have that conversation and to express your experiences without another person responding in these ways. It's so rare to have someone that just can hear you out and be like, that is really freaking hard. I'm sorry. In a really odd way, there's so much division and isolation that certain people on the spectrum go through because of how our autism presents and how invisible our struggles are. And I really wish one day research can give us data that allows us as a society to finally see the impacts made on people laying on a certain part of the spectrum.
But I didn't stop reading about it. I didn't stop trying to better understand. And what I've learned about myself and my lack of awareness, not that my awareness has so much broadened, but I have a better understanding of like, oh, I can't possibly know this. It's changed my life. And I have, as you said, it may be beneficial to some people. I have decided that like, yeah, I don't want to steer away from it. I love talking about all of these observations and tools, which I'd love to get into, but I'm dancing around at the moment because I wanted to be able to do it without qualifying it as autism, because it's not all autism. And I hate the idea of speaking for autism as opposed to speaking to my experiences, which relate to autism when it does.
Yeah.
There are some classic...
But you yourself said you were relieved when you kind of got that diagnosis, because it's like, oh, that explains
so
a lot
much.
of your OCD and like you.
The not picking up on the social cues, the taking things literally, the not being having a difficult time adapting to situations, my sensitivities to sounds and smells and textures, my obstacles in empathizing with points of view that I don't have intuitively. Me not understanding that just because I'm not uncomfortable doesn't mean that they're not. Me not understanding that even though I'll say, hey, I'm feeling vulnerable and uncomfortable and setting my own boundaries, other people either don't want to or don't know how to do that. Me learning how to give people a safe space, not because it's my responsibility, but because...
I don't think people realize that autism is more than just social deficits. It affects you in every aspect of your life. It affects your health, your ability to understand what your body is going through and how to tend to those needs. A lot of autistic people can be very hypersensitive to sensory input, but at the same time be very disconnected from, let's say, a certain pain that they've been experiencing in their body. And therefore, let's say something that an average person could just tune into immediately and go to the doctor about and get it treated. An autistic person could very much so go years without even really noticing that there's pain, because they don't really understand that it's not normal. It's just always been a part of them and their body and their sensations. And so let's say that same person gets to a point where their health dips a lot more severely than an average person. That's when they go to the doctor. And even when they go to the doctor and the doctor's asking them about the pain and the symptoms and how long they've been experiencing it, you don't even know how to describe that, because to you, you don't really remember if you've ever been experiencing it or how long. You just know that you got to a point where it's really, really bad and you couldn't ignore it. And when they ask you how bad it is and you say like, oh, I guess it's pretty bad, but you don't even know how to quantify it. And so the doctor doesn't really know how to gauge what you're actually going through accurately, because you don't even know how to understand what you're going through accurately. So you either overestimate the pain or underestimate the pain, or you find ways to describe the pain to the doctor, but you don't know how to describe it in a way that makes sense to them. So let's say you tell the doctor, it's really painful, I can't stand it. The way that you deliver that line might be really odd to the person. And so they don't really, with their own biases in understanding other people, they may not trust your input in a weird way. And there's all of these social dynamics that come with these objective things, like going to the doctor and your health, work, right? Work relationships become really, really difficult and non-objective, and that causes issues because some autistic people can't really function at work to their best capacity because they have difficulties with socializing. Another aspect of autism is having all of these sensory sensitivities and having issues with transitioning and hyper-focusing and getting fixated and having difficulties with change and how that impacts your mental health and your ability to, again, socialize, which is already difficult. Autism literally affects your ability to exist as a human. It's really difficult. It's not just missing social cues every now and then or wanting to eat the same food every day. It's a lot more complex than that.
Because if I don't, then they're not going to connect with me. And I have a bit where I talk about, I was diagnosed with autism in my 30s, and I have a bit where I talked about, like, I didn't realize I didn't have friends growing up until recently. I always thought everybody was busy. I just believed that I can't hang out, Rick. I used to have, sometimes I would ask kids would make excuses and I would say, can my mom talk to your mom? I mean, I'm not embarrassed or ashamed about it because I was a kid and my mom was my champion. But just the idea of just missing that, like, that's that thing, that one little thing that the audience is missing.
Oh, those moments are really tough when you reflect back with new knowledge and you have to recalibrate certain memories with more context. And you realize that this whole time you were being perceived a certain way. And you almost have to go through these moments after moments of cringe and feeling extremely just grossed out by yourself in a weird way, because it's like this moment of self-awareness, but it's so heightened and sharpened when it's multiple memories all at once. It's like there's another layer of shame that comes with not knowing during that time of like, oh my God, I must have looked so stupid. I saw this video the other day on TikTok that talked about what can help when you have these moments of recalibration and shame that arises with it. So I'm just going to share it here for you guys that may struggle with that as well.
Okay, so this is a mental health tip. If you're someone like me who will occasionally just get popped up on by a random awkward memory from maybe last week, maybe last month, maybe last year, maybe when you were 13 years old, you know, these memories that just kind of like pop up in your mind and make you feel terrible. So what I've been doing lately is that whenever I have one of those memories pop up in my mind, I just immediately respond with what my intention was in that moment. So I just try and remember my intention. So if I remember making like an awkward joke or something, I'll just remember, like, I was just trying to be funny. I was just trying to make a friend. I was just trying to do my job, whatever the case may be. And it's been helping me a lot. And there's no science behind that. That's just something that I've been doing for myself lately. And it's helped me, and maybe it'll help you too. All right, onward.
Oh, he's joking. This obvious comedian doing a performance is joking, obviously, but because they're missing that, now the whole thing flops. And now, do I stop doing that, or do I need to let them in on it, and how? And the autism diagnosis changed my comedy. I used to, getting back to the Bill Lawrence of it, who gave me my first job and is a big-time show creator now, and he saw me do stand-up, and he said...
he did Scrubs, he did Ted Lasso, he's done a lot of big hit shows.
After he saw me do stand-up the day we met, he goes, I love how comfortable you are in uncomfortable moments. And I knew he said that as a compliment, but I also thought, what was uncomfortable?
I hate when that happens, when someone says a line where it indicates something that you weren't aware of, and it makes you kind of cringe because you know they had good intentions, but it's also a little bit offhand. When someone's like, oh, you're so good at talking, when everyone else is really uncomfortable and they don't want to talk to you, you navigate that so well. And then in your head, you're like, people didn't want to talk to me. They didn't want to be around me. They were uncomfortable. Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, that makes me cringe then, because if that's the case and I kept talking, then that's really like icky. I don't like that. You know what I'm saying?
Doing a Will Smith impression or whatever the fuck. Like, what's uncomfortable about this? So I wasn't insulted. I believed him, but what is uncomfortable? And for the longest time, I had this reputation in comedy of like...
You'd replay the tape and go, I don't see what's uncomfortable.
This is like a fucking massage, guys. And like, I have and definitely had this reputation of, I like to make people uncomfortable and make stuff awkward. It's a operational cost, people getting awkward, but that's not what I'm trying to do. It's not what I want people to be like, yes, that's great what you just did. The problem wasn't what I thought was funny wasn't funny, and the problem wasn't that people thought I wasn't funny. The problem was that one little disconnect, and that one little disconnect is always a different thing. It's a disconnect, but it's always for a different reason. You remind me of somebody I don't like. You said something very direct, and it felt like you were being mean, so I'm needing to protect myself.
This is so accurate when it comes to having a certain type of social deficit where you could still somewhat interact, but you still don't really understand what's happening. So all you can really do is memorize every interaction and what it means and what were the appropriate responses. You think you learned your lesson, but the next time something happens, it's different. And you don't know how to adjust to that situation because it's different. And so therefore, you're always lost in every interaction ever because they're all a little bit different from each other. And it causes so much anxiety because you have a vast memory log in your brain just stuffed in there of all of these things of like, this is what this means and this is how you should respond and this is how to interpret people and what to do to let people interpret you correctly. And then you're put in the moment and you're like, okay, I have all my index cards, I'm ready. And then all the interaction starts playing out and you're just like, wait, I don't have cards for that. I don't have cards for that. I don't know what's happening. I don't know how I should respond.
There's a very specific moment. It was right when I got diagnosed and I was trying to look for this stuff. And I was having a conversation with a friend of mine and she's telling me this story about something that I'm not understanding. And I say, I'm sorry, I don't get it. What's the point? And then she finished talking 10
I do that all the time. I'll like interrupt someone talking to me, specifically my partner, because I don't do this with everyone because I know it could be taken the wrong way. But when my partner starts telling me a story, before he gets into the details, I have to be like, wait, okay, what's the point of this? Because I want to make sure that I'm processing the information he's about to spend all that time and energy giving me in the way that he is wanting me to process it. Because otherwise, if I'm left up to my own devices, I'll process it in the way that I need to, and my responses may offend him because I wasn't processing it and giving him the response and feedback that he's looking for. And so it's so helpful for me to get that context from him in what he wants from me and why he's telling me. So if he's saying, I'm about to tell you this story about my coworkers and I because I want you to give me feedback on what you think about our conversation, or I'm telling you this because I just want to talk about it and vent, and I don't really need feedback in that way. And so it's important to know that, or else I may say and do something that actually offends the other person, and I won't want to do that, right? If I'm given a choice, I will always want to choose to support the other person and make them feel heard in the conversation, but that means something different depending on the person and depending on what they expect from the conversation.
Seconds later. And I didn't think, the only thing I noticed in that moment was she has this energy talking, I said something, and then her energy changed and it ended. So I asked, did I say something that changed the energy? I was and still am very interested. She goes,
That happens so often, just not knowing what happened or why someone changed, but just being so hyper aware that something changed, and that causes so much panic and confusion. A lot of the times people who may be level 1 or 2 autistic end up having meltdowns from social interactions like that, where you see all of these changes happening in real time, but you don't know why or what happened or what to do, and you're just stuck and you're so lost and confused, and it's a lot.
I was probably talking too much. You told me what's the point, so I just wanted to get to it, which makes total sense. My intention was, I'm not able to follow right now. I need a thesis statement. I just help guide me to the point you're making so I could enjoy this with you.
Yeah.
One thing was missing.
Yeah.
That miscommunication happens and will always happen, and that's okay. But the idea to recognize that it did happen, first of all, and then try and get better at making it not. For example, saying something like,
I think this is the very reason why autistic people also like to do and experience the same things again and again, because usually the first time around, or maybe even the first couple times around, you're not actually able to fully enjoy it because it's so overstimulating and overwhelming, and you have to be hyper vigilant about all of these things in order to function within that experience. And so as you start to understand it more and know the purpose of it and know the mechanisms of existing within that experience, then you can actually relax for once and experience the experience. What non-autistic people don't realize is that that comes pretty intrinsically for non-autistic people, which is why a lot of the times non-autistic people love new experiences and doing new things. But for us, even if we want to, it's so overstimulating and scary and overwhelming because we don't get the luxury to just sit back and experience and exist. And the only way we could get to that point is when we do it over and over and over again. That's why you see someone get so fixated on something.
I am interested. I'm not quite understanding the point. Could you word that differently? And now it's different.
Right.
What I've learned from this diagnosis, and again, we're going out of order, the why of it I'm happy to get into, but what I learned from it is how to communicate more efficiently with people. Could you explain the point? I'm interested. I want to hear more, for example. And then helping condition other people how to better communicate with me. Whenever we have a new director, I don't say I have autism. I'd say, hey, I need to be spoken to very directly. I don't pick up on the nuance. If you want to give me a line read, if we don't have time.
That is a key point, you guys. You don't always have to share that you're autistic because not everyone's going to know what that means or what they should do to respond to you sharing your diagnosis. But what's more important is knowing your diagnosis for yourself so that you can understand why your brain is the way it is, how it works, and therefore what works best for you and how to accommodate yourself. So with this diagnosis, he was able to find out, this is how I process, this is the communication that works best for me, this is a way that I could communicate to better understand and interact with other people. And those really vital information would have not been discovered if he had not discovered the autism.
Time for something if you just say it.
Yeah.
Because when that's great. Why don't we do it this way and then blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Just tell me.
And for people who don't know, a lot of TV directors especially they're coming onto a set and they're the guest and everyone's established stars and they want to direct the episode, but they don't want to say, I'm not buying what you're doing. I need you to do it faster. And
Yeah, what's the point, basically?
Exactly. But they'll be like, yeah, try it again. They speak in this code. And I can imagine like trying to decipher that code on a set would be really challenging.
And even if I'm able to get to what they want, the inefficiency of it and the all of the different things,
That's the point, is even if you could get yourself to understand them and get to the point that they want you to get, it uses so much more spoons, which is why a lot of level 1 and 2 autistics end up dealing with a lot of burnout, depression, chronic fatigue, health issues, chronic pain, because we have been forcing ourselves to function and get to the end zone, despite it being so difficult and using 5 times more energy and effort to get to the same point that other people only need to exert a little bit of energy to get to. This is why it's so important to begin to understand how we are affected in our lives because of our autism, and therefore what things do we have to start integrating in our life to make it a little bit easier for ourselves so that it's just doable. At the end of the day, you're still getting things done. It's just you're not killing yourself to get to that point. That is the purpose. It's not an excuse. It's just, how do I still give you what you need? Maybe even more, because I'll have the energy to do so, because I have the accommodations, or because I can understand what works best with my process and my system.
I don't know you. I have to imagine this is how you are. And I say this just by watching your performances. So I'm really making a judgment. But there's so much in life to calculate at any given moment. And everything you have to calculate stops you or gets in the way from being present. And what you have on The Office, at least almost all the time, I mean, it's edited, so they pick the takes, is what both you and Steve have on The Office is it seems like you are completely in. You are completely present. Like, what is improvised and what is not, I don't know if anyone will know unless they look at a script. That is a superpower that if you're worried about doing something wrong or upsetting somebody or the time limit, at least you can't be present. You have to have a complete safe space. Mm-hmm. I don't mean to project, so I'll just...
That's so true. And I think that's a misconception that could come with autism in a sense. Not misconception as much as it is people not understanding the mechanisms underneath the behavior. So when people say that autistic individuals have a really hard time with rigidity, I don't think it's that simple. I feel like, yes, that is a behavior that is a result of our society and how we have to function within it. But at the same time, I feel like there's a lot of autistic people out there that are a lot more free-flowing and able to adjust spontaneously than we think they are. And a lot of it has to do with the simple fact of if we have the freedom to make a mistake. But because we have to respond in a very specific way that doesn't make sense to us, and we don't know the mechanisms surrounding that interaction or experience that well, we have to almost like puppeteer ourselves so specifically and intensely, and that's what creates that rigidity.
I'll just explain what I mean but does any of that connect with you?
Totally.
Like that's your superpower is being present.
Yes, but there are sets and roles and situations where I really struggle as an actor to be present. And exactly what you said, like I hate to use the word safe space because it's such an overused word, but
quite literally feeling safe.
But Greg Daniels created a safe space, and 𝐏𝐚𝐭𝐫𝐁, who directed Larry Sanders Show and other kind of semi-improvised shows, they created an environment. Even with the guest directors, even with the writers, there's like, we're gonna find it. Everything is malleable.
Finding it is the safest. Like, hey, we're supposed to find it is the safest.
Yeah.
I almost called my podcast "Finding It." Like, hey, we're gonna find it. Doesn't matter because we're finding it. I'm sorry, but that is like that's the ultimate safe space and creativity.
Yeah. So
honestly, when you're interacting and talking to someone with autism, just communication is the key factor. You could do something with an autistic person with no expectations of how it's going to turn out and whatnot, and have no plans, which you would think that would be an autistic person's worst nightmare, which in some instances, yes. But the key factor is that if you're able to communicate through the whole thing, no matter what you're going through, no matter how rigid, how planned, or how spontaneous, if you're constantly communicating and being so honest, we are a lot more flexible than you may think. Like, if the director told him, we're going to find it, it could be perceived as a really nightmare situation because he's like, I don't know what that means. Like, I don't know what to give you. But if there's a trust there that, like, as you're doing something and then the director is able to be like, okay, this works and this doesn't, and you're able to adjust yourself every single time because there's all this straightforward, honest communication, that makes it a safe space. A safe space doesn't always equal, this is how it's going to play out. This is what I need from you. This is the end result I need, blah, blah, blah. If anything, I've seen in other autistics and myself that rigidity actually is also a coping mechanism. Telling someone exactly how something's going to go and having a script is a coping mechanism to our society not supporting us and understanding how to integrate us. In reality, what would actually work best with us is the freedom to exist, be ourselves, express ourselves, knowing that if there's anything that does not work, someone will tell us. If there's anything that does work, someone will tell us. If there's any changes that need to be made, someone will tell us. Otherwise, we're just doing our thing.
As long as we got what was scripted eventually, usually earlier on, and then we could take as many takes as we wanted. Sometimes we'd have 5 takes, we'd have a solid scripted take, and we would do 17 takes because there's more to just explore and have fun with, and then it would dry up and we would move on. So there was the parameters for me and Steve and all of the actors for that matter to really sink in and just respond to exactly what's in front of us in a way that you need to do successful improv.
But when you have things you have to think about, like in a simple version that there's no way around, we have to hurry up, we don't have time.
Yeah.
In a way that isn't as efficient. The director said I could do this, but I don't really know. Or am I annoying people? Am I wasting people's time?
Yeah.
And that's interpersonally as well. Like now, whenever anybody checks their watch, I have to ask, do you want to go? Are we talking too much?
Right.
Because I, for better and for worse, don't trust until I know somebody, their ability to establish their own boundaries.
That part right there. A lot of the social deficits that autistic people have and the interpersonal issues that we have is literally because of people's inability to express and communicate their own boundaries. Our society is built on needing to predict what people are going through and what you have to do to accommodate their boundaries so that they don't have to tell you what their boundaries are, but you're still addressing their boundaries and accommodating them without them asking. If you don't do so, you're a bad person or you don't care, right? And the need to express a boundary indicates that the relationship's not working or the other person doesn't care or it's too late to do something about it because the fact that you have to finally express it means that you've hit a breaking point. This isn't healthy. It's really not healthy. It's actually healthier to have the freedom to say, you know what, that doesn't really work with me, or you know what, I don't like that, without the other person having to be so guttered over it and thinking that you now hate them and resent them and all of that stuff. It's just an objective thing. Like, I don't like that. That doesn't work.
So I feel this sense of, because I've missed people's boundaries so much. The first 2 years after my diagnosis, I was saying sorry to everything preemptively, just in case. I'm by the way, sorry. I don't know if I'm changing the frame. Is this fine? Like just checking in with everything, like just fucking be. And it's that calculating stuff.
This is really rich and
again, the rigidity is a behavior that characterizes autism, but I feel like it's a behavior that develops as a coping mechanism to how poorly autism is understood and integrated into society. I'm so interested to see the next few years and decades how autistic behavior patterns are going to change as we begin to integrate autistic individuals more appropriately and effectively into society. Are we going to start to see autistics as a whole be a lot less rigid? Are we actually going to see that autistics are a lot more creative than a non-autistic person? You know, things like that.
Really valuable. Talk me through a little bit about, again, going back a little more in the history. Like, I want to know, you had some inkling. Bill Lawrence brought it up as a possibility. You You went and got a diagnosis. I want to know how that worked.
Sure.
And then how did you talked about how you felt relieved, but I imagine, did you feel sad or heartbroken or confused
for
at the same
external
time
reasons.
too? Did it make you depressed? Like, talk me through the arc
Sure.
of that discovery and how it affected you in terms of a personal transformation.
In grade school, I was always in special classes. Just learning disabled type of stuff, just like the study hall that was a little small, the blah, 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 blah.
Short bus.
Yeah. I think that term, I don't really care, but I think that term is a bit stigmatized, and for whatever reason, I'm trying to be conscious of it.
We're cutting that out. Don't worry. I'm going to throw some things in.
I don't think it's worth
absolutely.
I don't think it's worth cutting out because it's nothing bad. I mean, it's up to you. That's fine, but
it's offensive. It's one of those things we would like in the 70s and 80s be like, oh, the short bus kids.
I think if it is offensive, I think it's oddly offensive for the wrong reason, as if being on the idea of being a short bus makes sense. Hey, these people, there's less people like this than like this, so statistically the bus.
This is also another controversial conversation that we're exploring within the autism community, is the concept of language and policing each other on language. I feel like although the conversation is so important and should continue to happen, what I want to really highlight here, so let's kind of give each other some perspective, is that we're spending so much time policing each other on what's right and what's wrong, when in reality, the issue isn't necessarily with the language, it's with the system outside of us that makes it so difficult to exist as an autistic person. That system is not working. It creates a lot of issues. And because we're all struggling, we're trying our hardest to do what we can to cope and to survive. We're delegating all of our energy towards each other and trying to correct each other, criticize each other, make each other improve. Which, I mean, okay, yeah, that's fine to hold each other accountable. The concept of that is good, but how much of that is actually misguided frustration towards a system that doesn't work, that you are not addressing because it's too big and too far outside of yourself, and it's easier for you to direct that anger and frustration towards another person within the community. We see it all the time. The video I recently made about Abby's mom, Christine, and the whole discourse surrounding that. There's also so many other discourse going on within the community surrounding other topics that I feel like is, again, important conversations to have, but we're not directing it in an effective, proper way. I'm not saying to not address it and to not talk about it. I'm actually saying all this effort we're putting in, keep it. Let's all put in effort as we are, but let's consolidate it and direct it in a more specific directional way that is actually moving us forward.
Doesn't need to be as long. It's like saying, oh, you have a sedan, we have an SUV. Okay. There were things that happened in school that we could get into, but not the point. The point of it is all these things and needing to go to these special schools and being really embarrassed coming back to my main school and like I always felt like
what did you struggle with in school? Why were you put there? You're so articulate, so brilliant. Your mind works at 1,000 miles per hour. What was your struggle?
I've been thinking about this, and I could only answer from my memories of a kid. So I don't know. What I have to imagine is,
can we call your mom?
Yeah.
What's her name?
Debbie.
Debbie?
Yeah.
Let me talk.
It's just too long and involved.
Yeah. Mom, we're gonna let you go.
Okay.
All right. Love you. Bye.
Love you. Bye.
I do that too, where when I'm done with the phone call, I don't even know how to wrap it up. I'm just like, bye. I used to actually hang up on phone calls without even saying bye. It's just when I'm done and I said what I need to say, and then the conversation isn't really going anywhere anymore. I used to just hang up. That was when I was younger and I had more, I guess, social deficits and whatnot. And I didn't do that to people. I mostly did that to like family members, people I was not afraid of offending. I could tell he was just done with the conversation because he got what he needed and he was like, okay, bye.
Your dad owns a rug store in Cleveland?
Yeah, and I have a problem with, and me and my dad go back and forth on this, and like a lot of successful businesses, they like to have a lot of happy customers, and we don't have one customer at Marshall Rug Gallery, which is ridiculous because everybody at Marshall Rug Gallery is family.
So the diagnosis.
So I had these problems as a kid. They went away. I didn't have these problems anymore. These problems were the way my social interactions were very, very difficult and or non-existent. I didn't communicate very consistently with people. I had very, very, very bad OCD, and things needed to be done a very certain way, which isolated me from people. I got into comedy. I learned how to communicate jokes, and most of the people I interacted with were, comedians, and you didn't have to connect in the ways you do in the real world. It could just be bits, and
and you were good at recognizing the bit. There was something in your brain that was like, oh, I see the construct of the bit.
Either exactly or the exact opposite. And what I mean by that is I never knew if this was a joke or not. That's
so true. And I think that's why sometimes autistic people can say or do something that seems extremely inappropriate, because in our heads, there's a miscalculation there of the purpose of the interaction and what the mechanisms are. So in our minds, if we have, gathered enough information about like, oh, our dynamic is more playful and sarcastic and whatnot, and they usually like to laugh when I say something mean, you could be like, okay, with these group of people, I'll just like roast everyone because that's what makes people laugh. And then there'll be a situation where you roast someone and everyone's like, oh, that was inappropriate. That was too far because Joe is going through a hard time. And you're just like, but I thought that's what our dynamic was. I thought that's what everyone likes. And usually you guys respond well to it, but now you don't. And I don't really get that. I feel like that's also another flavor of social deficit that certain people on the spectrum can go through, which is so hard for people outside of the spectrum to understand, because we usually take people's actions as face value of like, they did that because they had malicious intent, when it's never that simple. And it doesn't excuse the action that may have hurt another person, but I'm saying like, we shouldn't always assume the reasoning is because of this specific reasoning when there could be a multitude of reasons why someone does something that isn't okay. And it's important to know why. People like to say if someone did something wrong, we shouldn't care about them or why they did it. It's just wrong, right? I don't agree with that, because if we actually as a society want to help people who struggle with mental health or struggle with circumstantial reasonings, we have to understand why they make the mistakes they make so that they have access and tools to rectify the mistakes and grow as a person and not make those mistakes again. This whole ideology of when someone does something bad, they're just a bad person and then we do away with them is not healthy. And I feel like that's how America tends to deal with things, whether it's within the prison system or within social groups and things like that. There's this idea of if you say or do something wrong once or twice or multiple times, like you're just not a good person. We're all going to demonize you and then not even care why you did it, let alone give you a chance to rectify it and grow as a person, because you're always going to be that bad person. And it's easier to hate someone than to realize that they're a human being that for whatever reason made a decision that wasn't great, and give them a chance to like grow as a person, make more of a positive impact on society. And again, these are all protective coping mechanisms that people have, like needing to identify these are safe people and they're so good and I idealize them, and these are the bad people, so let's tear them down and criticize them and isolate them.
To treat everything as if it were real, but it's a joke. I've said this on my podcast a lot, but I don't find jokes and sincerity mutually exclusive. They're both. Mm-hmm. Hey, we're being playful, we're being silly. Everything is inspired by something real. I am treating this very real, but my tone, my energy, the way we're doing it is going to be a joke because I never knew. Mm-hmm. which then led to people never knowing if I was joking or serious. And that was 10 years of my life. I always knew everybody knew I was joking. Of course they know. How could they not? There was no world where I would recognize that they didn't know I was joking. And a flaw in the social system is people won't tell you. People would rather just be like, okay, and walk away than saying, hey, I'm not understanding your intention here and you're making me uncomfortable. So for the longest time, I'm now like, great.
That's so funny. Can I just pop in there real quick? My therapist, who also sees my wife and is our couples therapist, named Bruce, he's amazing. And he says that the number one tool for communication in a relationship is the phrase, that didn't feel good, what's your intent? And that was exactly, and it's so funny because that's exactly what you said. But it is an issue, like when stuff comes at us and either someone was rude or not being, they weren't meaning to be rude. They were like, what,
Just
can you
triggered
get to
you,
the point?
you, yeah.
Yeah. So that didn't feel good. What's your intent? Is so important in a marriage, and it immediately slows things down.
Yeah.
Immediately takes stock.
That is an essential part of having people in your life as an autistic person, or if you have an autistic person in your life. What is your intention? This is something that my partner and I have to do every single time. Let's say my spoons are lower, my affect is flatter than normal, and he says, oh, do you want me to heat up your dinner? And I'll say, no. He'll ask me like, oh, are you upset or are you just low on spoons? And I'll say, I'm low on spoons. It has nothing to do with you. And that helps him understand a lot better what my intention is. And likewise, if he ever jokes around with me and roasts me a little bit too hard and I'm more sensitive that day, I'll check in with him before I react to my sensitivity. I'm like, where are you at? Are you joking mood or are you serious mood? And he'll say, I'm in a joking mood. And then it helps basically alleviate everything. And we don't even have to have that conversation anymore because I'm like, okay, I understand the intention now, so I don't have to be hurt, you know?
Stock of your sensitivity, and all you're saying is it didn't feel good. That didn't mean that you're being an asshole. You're not pointing any fingers.
You learn in second grade, you talk in I feelings, not you dids.
Yeah.
Not
And by the way, that doesn't have to mean that you just accept what they're doing or saying to you because their intention is good. That's where the accommodation follows up. After you understand their intention, you could check in with yourself and see, okay, am I okay if he were to keep roasting me? Usually for me, I'll just respond with, okay, I understand that you weren't being serious, but I'm sensitive today, so can you not roast me? I just need a lot more TLC today because I'm not doing as well as I usually am. You know, things like that.
Accusations. Yeah, it also develops a shorthand because if you say, hey, that didn't feel good, and I say, oh, sorry, I was just doing this, you could then say, even though you were joking, I didn't like it.
Yeah.
Now I know not to do it.
Yeah.
Or you could be like, that makes so much sense. I thought, oh, I don't care, keep doing it. And then you develop this shorthand, this trust, and giving people the benefit of the doubt. Not only is it important when you recognize that I don't feel good to communicate it, what seems to be an obstacle for a lot of the people that I meet is they don't even know that something didn't make them feel good in the moment. They don't understand their feelings. They may understand that doesn't feel good, but they don't know why, let alone have the...
That's so true. There's so many times where I'm interacting with someone where I could tell that something I said or did hurt them. And when I check in and I'm like, are you okay? They'll say like, yeah, I'm fine. And then I'll check in again. I'll be like, did I say something wrong? Like, I kind of suspect this specific sentence made you feel a certain way because it shifted your energy completely. And they'll stick by it. They'll be like, no, nothing's wrong. But then as we keep interacting, they'll take out their resentment or anger out on me passive aggressively and maybe be a lot more shorter with me, more defensive, more critical. And then I'm just like, okay, checking in a third time. Are you okay? Because you're not. You keep saying you are, but you seem upset with me. So what is it? That is such a good example of what Rick is talking about, of someone not even knowing that something bothers them, let alone how to express it to you when you ask. And this is why these social deficits extend so much further out than just the autistic person. These social deficits kind of highlight the issues within society as a whole and the way that we suppress communication and expect unhealthy expectations from everyone else around us. and ourselves.
The confidence and ability to communicate it. It doesn't even have to be a negative thing. It could be the me joking all the time. It could be the me annoying everybody with all of my bits.
I'm sure you've had some relationships and some girlfriends who are like, Rick, will you cut it with the bits?
Yeah, so in close relationships, it wasn't as much of a problem because there wasn't as much of a need for me to hide behind them. Because like...
A lot of the times with autism, the person who sees us unmasked the most is our romantic partners, because they just experience us in a more intimate level, both physically intimate and living with each other, all of that stuff. Like, you kind of break down all these walls. Like, you have to be emotionally aligned. You have to be brutally honest with each other. And so in a sense, a lot of those masks that we have in other situations or coping mechanisms don't really get to come out and play during your interactions with your partner.
When you're going to a comedy club, I'm in comedy mode. I only see these guys twice a week. I'm doing bits. I want to be funny. I want to be laughing. This isn't the sitting at home and having this. I'm so grateful for my podcast to be having these long form conversations with peers and friends.
You have a podcast?
It's called Take Your Shoes Off. And it doesn't have to be all bits. I'm going a little bit all over the place. I want to still answer what you're saying, but I used to only do bits not just because I wanted to laugh and I recognized one thing I recognized was laughing. I didn't know how you were feeling. I didn't know if you liked me or not. I still don't know if you like me or not, but I knew that's a real laugh, and I chased it. I want that because it was honest. If you give somebody a present, some people thank you so much. Some people, oh, this is nice. You don't know how they feel. If you make somebody angry, they might ignore you. They might overreact. You don't know. The laugh evens the playing field. But I also then kind of developed this thing where I just talk in jokes. It just you do bits, you know? You saying you have a podcast, it's just a little bit. It's just a thing. It's just constant bits you're doing. I didn't know how much I was bothering people. And when I noticed a couple of things that made me think, wait a minute, do I have autism? I don't have autism, but like, kinda. Yeah. All of these things it wasn't worth finding out. I'm in a basketball game with Bill Lawrence. I'm in that game because he saw me do stand-up and he invited us, me and some of my friends and me. Then he asks me to audition. I'm in the show. The show is 3 years. The show ends. So I'm in this game for almost 6 years. And I got an email one day from him, which is with this I Am Phenomenal, that video I made. 𝗄𝗏 plays Bill.
Yeah.
His script is the email from Bill.
So the actual dialogue he says in this short film video that you made is
almost word for word, with the exception of Joel improvising, and I say this for Bill's benefit, Joel improvising how much he loves anal sex. I just want to let that be known, because Bill said he got a lot of messages talking about how much he loves anal. So that was not part of the email. So he basically, I got kicked out of this basketball game because I was bothering people.
Oh, wow.
Some of the stuff I disagreed with, some of the stuff I didn't realize, but I believe. The I Am Phenomenal, it's called that because I am the best basketball player out there. I am funny. I am good. Everybody likes me. And then I found out not only am I not the first one picked, they don't even want me there. And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? Why? Because I want to win? You fucking cucks. You know, like I went into this mentality like, if I lose,
He overcommitted to the mask because he saw the purpose of this is this, and he only did that rigidly. And that became a mistake because the nuances that it would take to exist here called to take aspects of existing outside of that bubble. And he didn't know how to access it because that would require spontaneity, intuition, and knowing what to do in certain situations that may not be consistent with what you had thought and things like that. And those are little nuances that is hard for autistic folks.
You have to sit and wait a game. Nobody wants to do that. There's only one value I have to bring, and that's to win and to yell at people for shooting threes when it's a 3-on-1 fast break and get to the fucking hoop and just setting hard picks and not recognizing that a lot of these guys are 50-year-old comedy writers just looking to get away from their family and have a good time. And I'm just, cut to the fucking, I'm just like yelling. And though I don't think I'm wrong for my instincts of wanting to win and play aggressively, I had no idea that this was stepping on other people's enjoyment. And within 2 weeks, I got kicked out of a basketball game and a poker game with what I thought were my friends who think I'm the funniest, best guy in the world. And then like, we don't want Rick here. He's too aggressive. He talks too much shit, blah, 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 blah. And Bill, it was a very, very kind, very, very direct email that made me feel very sad and appreciative at the same time, which was,
I don't think people realize how much autistic folks appreciate honesty, even if it hurts. I feel like most of the time we would rather someone just be honest, even if what they have to say hurts our feelings, because at least we know how to process what happened and how we want to move forward and what we want to do about it. If people are not honest, there's no way for us to understand what went on, what went wrong, what we want to do about it, and how to adjust ourselves. And so it causes a lot of confusion and anxiety, and just it honestly, in a weird way, takes your ability to move on and grow as a person away, because you don't really know if you have to grow or how to grow. And you kind of have to accept that something went wrong and it's always going to go wrong somehow. And I don't know when it's going to happen. I don't know how it's going to happen. I don't know what to do for it to not happen, but it's going to keep going wrong. When someone's honest with you, it makes everything, all the fog, all of the anxiety, all the confusion just go away. It takes away that work. And for a lot of us, we'd rather deal with the remnants of the pain that the honest communication brings us than to deal with the pain and the confusion.
I'm like, wait, these people... And I'm just like, I read this email and I had been thinking about it for a little bit. And he goes, it seems like you lack awareness on how people receive you, which would be the thesis statement of what I'd been missing.
Sure.
That one little thing. And it's like, yeah, obviously.
Yeah.
But it wasn't that I don't know how they think about me. I knew. There's a Mark Twain quote that I love. I'm paraphrasing, but being wrong isn't the problem. It's knowing you're right when it just ain't so. Like, I knew.
Wait, say that again?
The issue isn't not knowing something.
Yeah.
That's fine. It's knowing something that isn't the case. So like, if I don't know how they feel about me, I then at least, answers are easy, questions are hard. Like, okay, I have to navigate this and figure this out, but I knew how they felt about me. I'm the first one picked. I'm the best basketball player. Let's go, baby. And like, that blinded me from the truth, which was the negative stuff.
Can I, there's so much more to cover here.
That's so true, because there's so many times where I'll assume that because of certain things that people did for me and that I did, that it automatically means that I am going to be positively received, and that's not the case. And those social nuances are so hard to understand. For example, when I used to work with other people, I used to think if I am the best worker here and I do my job really well, everyone will like me and want me around because I am a great coworker and I do my job. But in these moments where there's another coworker that barely does any work and yet everyone loves them, I would be so confused. And likewise, if I'm doing all the work and then everyone kind of sees that I have a stick up my ass, I'll be so confused because I'm like, wait, so you guys want me to be a shitty coworker that doesn't do my job and slacks off? I couldn't understand what those mechanisms were. If you guys complain about the person who doesn't do the job because you don't like working with them because you have to pick up on their slack, but at the same time, there's someone that you really like to be around and you hang out with them all the time outside of work and invite them to all the parties. Meanwhile, you love working with me, but don't really want to talk to me, don't really want to hang out with me outside of work. I couldn't understand those contradictions, you know? So I could see that with his example of being picked first for the basketball game. He automatically thought that people would like him, and so he was confused as to why people felt uncomfortable with him after.
In this story, I really am being very sincere and saying I love hearing this. I think the audience is going to love hearing this. It's fascinating.
But what's the point?
No, I know what the point is, but I do want to say something, and I don't want to come across as offensive. It's hard when you say someone is like on the spectrum, because part of me thinks like, Well, is there a spectrum, and where is the line? Because who you described, like a lack of emotional self-awareness, that describes Michael Scott and Dwight Schrute. Also, it describes Rainn Wilson, who had very dysfunctional parents who were not very, didn't have emotional intelligence. They both came from very traumatized backgrounds. So I grew up really feeling like a fucking alien in humanity. I am not making that up at all. I felt like I didn't fit in at all.
Well,
and I've told this story.
So
yeah, and it's why I tell this story of like, I would literally observe kids in the lunchroom of how they're normal, easy. What's that?
It's called masking. I remember you talking about that. I'm like, yeah, he's masking.
Oh, it has a name. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And I would see someone come up to someone else and say like, "Hey bro, how was your weekend?" And clap twice on their back. And then I would try it on my friend Mike or Julie, and I'd be like, "Hey bro, how was your weekend?" And hit them twice. And of course it went terribly. And I'd look at what they were wearing, and I'd want to wear the same thing. Oh, I need a members only jacket and a KISW Seattle's Best Rock t-shirt in order to fit in. But it was all like trying. I felt like an alien. It was Third Rock from the Sun. It was a Starman. It was the alien on the brother from another planet observing human behavior. And also, and just ask my wife, really not so good at reading emotional cues and being sensitive to people. And I've had a lot of blow-ups and lost some friendships from my inability. I don't know that I would diagnose myself as being autistic, but how does that work? And I don't want to be offensive about what the diagnosis is.
I can explain the way that it was explained to me. So my diagnosis was from an adult behavior specialist who specializes in autism, and she explained to me that it's a lot more difficult to diagnose an adult than a child because they have adapted to
That's the key factor I would love to see reflected in research data for the next generations is what are the autistic traits? Yes, but also what are the objective repercussions of needing to adapt coping mechanisms as an autistic person existing in a world that doesn't support autism and doesn't understand autism? Because I feel like it's so counterintuitive to delegate our energy in trying to quantify the validity of your autism based off of how much you are struggling outwardly. I feel like a lot of this has to do with the fact that our system is just broken. And if that's the case, we should be delegating our energy in trying to figure out ways to adjust the system and having that discussion rather than directing it towards each other. I imagine the reason why people want to quantify struggle within the community is because there's lack of support. And if there's lack of support, then we have to figure out who within the community needs more support to be prioritized first, right? And then from there, who's the next person in line? Who's the next person in line? But if we lived in a world where autism was better integrated and understood, and we're not fighting for resources of support, then we wouldn't have to sit here and argue who is struggling more than the other. It's more so about how are we all struggling and in what ways do we have to be supported for that struggle, or in what ways do we need to be accommodated so that we're not struggling as much. All right, so I hope you guys enjoyed watching this video with me. It was so insightful to hear about Rick's experience with autism and getting diagnosed, how that's impacted him. I think there was a lot of really good gems in there that we were able to explore together. Other than that, make sure you guys take some time today to regulate yourselves, and I will see you on next week's video. Bye, guys.